Hi everybody, this is Zach from Angler's Escape, and today I thought I'd go over all the different fishing lines that I use when I go fishing. So I pretty much target whatever fish species biting at the time. That could be bass, bluegill, catfish, crappie, trout, just kind of a wide variety of different fish. And so today I was going to kind of show you all the different pound test lines I use, starting from 4-pound test line all the way up to 50-pound test line. So to kind of contrast here, for 4-pound test line at the very low end of the spectrum, I use for trout and bluegill. Trout are really finicky, and they're really scared off by thicker line. If they can see your line, they won't take your bait or your lure. So that's why you need to go small diameter, probably 4-pound test, or even some people say even lighter. Bluegills, it's a lot of times the same way. You don't need thick line, and the thinner the line, the less likely the fish is to see the line. But on the other end of the spectrum here, I have some 50-pound monofilament line, and this I really use for targeting big catfish, especially big blue catfish and flathead catfish. Catfish, they're not at all finicky about the line. You can put out a big trout line and just tie a big hook to a piece of string and the fish and a piece of rope, and the fish will still bite. So for catfish, you definitely want the higher pound test line, and here's 30-pound test line as well. So 30 and 50-pound test line for the big fish, the big catfish, and 4-pound test line for the trout and bluegill. And then in the middle here, I have a whole bunch of other pound test line. I was going to kind of go over the species I target with this. For bass, usually I try to use around 10-pound test line. I think that's about, if you get too much lower, you have to have your drag set really low and be really skilled, otherwise you'll lose a lot of fish. 10-pound test line keeps you from losing a lot of fish, and also it's still pretty small diameter, so the fish won't see it as well, and they'll be more likely to strike your lures. Sometimes with bass you can go with 8 or even 14-pound test line if there's a lot of weeds and snags and stuff. You just have to, the lower you go, the more you need to have your drag set just right. Another thing I'd like to say for walleye, a lot of times I'll use 14-pound test line. It's a little heavier. Walleye have some teeth, and usually 14-pound test line or 20-pound test line even with walleye, their teeth usually won't break the line. If you're fishing for anywhere 10-pound walleye or below, you're probably safe with 14 or 20-pound test line in my experience. Crappie, I usually use 8-pound test line. Also, sometimes I'll use 4-pound test line for crappie too, but again, you just have to make sure your drag set right, because sometimes 4-pound test, if your line's getting stretched out a lot and crappie takes it, it can break the 4-pound test line from time to time. But 8-pound test lines work good for crappie. I find 10 is really good just all around. If you kind of want to pull for crappie, bass, and a lot of just regular pond fish, 10-pound test is pretty good because you won't lose too many bass or crappie, especially if your drag set right. But for walleye, maybe 14 or 20, and for catfish, for the big catfish over 10 pounds, I'd go for 30 or 50. So here's kind of all my layouts of line right here. And you can see here's my big catfish pole, and this has the 40-pound test line on it. And some poles, it'll kind of tell you what pound test line to put on them. If you get too big, one problem is if you try to get one of these smaller poles right here, like my trout fishing pole, you obviously can't put anything probably over 10-pound test line on it because the pole is going to break before the line does. So you got to get somewhat of the right poles, but you can get a large pole, medium pole, and a small pole and kind of put the test line on accordingly. And so I hope you learned something here today, and thanks for watching.